Welcome to another episode of The Music Prophet. My name is Kyle Vine, and I'll be your host. Like usual, thank you everyone who is listening and sharing and supporting. It's been really exciting seeing how this type and style and sound of the musicians has really changed, and the knowledge they bring to the show is incredible. And today is no different. I have invited Kassie Taylor to come on the show as the guest, and I think you'll recognize her from bars and restaurants and other places around town, but you might also know her because your son or daughter might have performed in Camp Star, or maybe you heard stories of her trips to Mexico. I hope you enjoy the conversation, and we'll jump right into it.
So my name is Kassie Taylor, for those who don't know. I'm a singer-songwriter in the Sudbury area. I don't know what else to say. I've toured a couple times. I've lived in a lot of different countries. That's a fun thing people always like to ask me about. And I play around town a lot. So maybe you've seen me. Hi, Matt. I think people are saying hi. I see comments. I don't know if you see.
I do as well, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's actually, and I think it's a really good place to start because with your music, I mean, you've traveled a lot with it. And so when it comes to traveling, what has been a highlight so far?
Ooh. That's hard. There's a lot of highlights. I mean, the best part about being on the road is having new experiences every day and meeting new people, and it's just so different than being stationary and being in the same spot all the time. One of my favorite things that I got to do on the road was perform at the venue in Sacramento, California. There was like over 50,000 people in the venue, and it was the same venue as the Rolling Stones, like held a few of their like really popular concerts, and the Beach Boys as well. So it was really cool, just the history of that building, getting to perform there as well.
Yeah, and I imagine too, when you're in that space, you can the energy is different, I imagine.
Yeah, it just felt so surreal when I was up there.
Yeah, and actually, in jumping off that, I mean, it's one thing to play in a venue like that, but then when you return back to Sudbury or back to like Northern Ontario cities, it's just such a different vibe.
Yeah, so that's funny actually, because when you perform for that many people, it kind of loses its intimacy, I guess, to the show. I definitely felt connected with everyone in the audience, but it kind of felt like there was this wall there, between me and the audience. But when I'm back in Sudbury and I'm performing for a couple people in a restaurant or a cafe, it's much more intimate, and that's when I really get into the stories and getting to know the audience more, basing what I play off of what they like.
And that makes the biggest difference, especially when, I mean, your songwriting style, I feel like is something where in a big stadium it doesn't resonate as much.
Well, it kind of depends, because when I was performing for that crowd specifically, like, they were there to see some of that stuff. So, but yeah, if it wasn't people who had no idea who I was and I was performing there, they definitely wouldn't want to hear that stuff. But here, yeah, I kind of have a lot more people ask me to hear originals and tell the stories behind them and make it more personal.
Well, and that's a good connection, right? Because there's personal songs and then there's personable songs. So is there a difference between the two? Do you have the balance between them?
Yeah. For me, I find as a writer, I write a lot about my personal stories and things that I've gone through, but it's more important to have other people understand or like connect with what they're going through to what you're writing. So I never just have myself in mind when I'm writing a song. I always think about what are other people going through. Can they relate to what I'm talking about when I'm writing a song?
And the audience is important, especially when if they're going to listen to the song over and over again, if it doesn't connect, it's kind of tough to get the song stuck in their head.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Well, I know for me when I'm listening to other people's music, I know if I like a song right away, and if I can relate to it, I'll just continuously listen to the same song over and over again. So I really strive for what I experience while listening to other people's music, that I hope people can experience that when they're listening to my music.
And what does that experience look like?
Like from their point of view or from my point of view?
From your point of view, you know, like when with your listening experience and with music that you listen to.
Yeah, so I guess this is a bit more personal. I don't know. I constantly think of like relationships and like past experiences. If I can listen to a song and immediately think back to something that I have gone through, I don't know. It just kind of helps you through that time, and that's, like I said, kind of my hope for what people experience in my music is that it can take them back to a time. It might not be a happy time or a pretty time, but if it can take them back and help them through it, then that's kind of the goal here.
Because healing music is one of the best ways to heal as well.
Exactly. Yeah, honestly, I don't know what I would do without music.
I mean, you say that, yet you have started getting into mentorship, you've done the Camp Star. I mean, you found a variety of things that have sort of dabbled within the space of music, but isn't exactly just songwriting and performing.
Yeah, so, well, I've been teaching music for a long time now. Well, I can't say a long time. Since 2014 was when I started teaching, when I opened my business.
Yeah, that's only 6 years.
Yeah, it's been a while now, I guess. But I really started connecting more with it now, having done all of that touring and having all of that knowledge, being able to share that with some of the upcoming artists, some younger people who are, let's say, like lots of my students are 14, 15 years old, and they want to get into live music. And it's really hard when you don't know how to do it or when you don't have those connections. So to have someone there to teach you about all of that and to get you into the industry, that's kind of what I hope to be, that bridge for them.
And do you find that did you have mentorship like that when you were 14 or 15?
I did with my dad. So, but it's always so hard because I guess you have your parent goggles on and like my dad was definitely a mentor for me in music. Like he helped me, book gigs and taught me about being an entertainer, not just a performer. But it's always hard to learn from your parents. I don't know if you've ever tried to learn something. It's really difficult, but I think we have a really special connection that way, that he's my father and my biggest mentor too.
Yeah, that would make sense though. I mean, especially when there isn't a separation between being on stage and then being at home. It's kind of, instead of having someone where you might perform backup vocals and then the show ends and that's it until the next time you do a show.
Yeah, it's a lot different, and I do both. Sometimes I just do like backup stuff, kind of with the Chris Stapleton tribute. That's less my band. It's more that I'm just performing for them. And
that's a great topic to jump into because I mean, I'm saying I mean a lot today. That's really interesting. You know, like I found on the music prof, you know, like there's phrases they get repeated occasionally, and today is I mean. It's important that you mention that, because as an acoustic songwriter, in your case, then you can fit into a lot of spaces, and a lot of times it's not always just about you. It's about supporting other artists. It's about playing with on other stages, creating songs for other people without getting recognition as much. Because there's a big difference between all of them, right? But have you found that
I'm like catching a few phrases and like trying to follow along?
Yeah, but I guess essentially I mean that you've done the variety of different elements of performance. You've been solo, and you've been the background, and you've been the person behind the stage.
Yeah, it's really different because I find like when I'm performing just me and my guitar, it's like I just have to worry about what I'm doing and basically what the audience wants to hear. I find like that's the easiest thing to do is when it's just me, because you're not relying on other people, you're not worried about anything else. I think the most stressful thing for me is when I'm at one of my students' shows, or like I'm hosting a show for my students. That's the most stressful time because it's all them, you know, and there's only so much you can do from backstage, and there's only so much you could do to help them in that moment, and you just kind of hope that after all the work that you put in over the last few months, that they really take that in and use that to shine. I mean, they always do, but you always have that like little bit of anxiety when it's happening.
You're not in control. Yeah, you're not in control of them on the stage, so you don't know what will happen technically.
Yeah, but
what's more rewarding then? Being the one on the stage or being the one behind the stage?
That is a really hard question. I have to say, right now, for me, the most rewarding is being the one behind the stage. And I always thought for me that it would be the one on the stage, because that's how it's been for a long time. But after this summer, when I did Camp Star, things started changing, because I've never felt so much pride, and like I was so proud in all the students after their final concert that they did. Like we were talking about, it's like that attachment that you grow to things. Whereas I have that when I'm on stage by myself, but I think I've been doing it for so long that it's like, oh, I perform, you know, this is great. I'm having a lot of fun. And then I go, whereas with my students, it's like, this is it, now or never, you know? Yeah, so I think I'm definitely more proud being behind the stage.
And watching them grow would be a big part of it too, seeing them start young and struggling to even perform a cover, and then to get to the point where they're actually doing their own song on stage.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I have one of my students, Leah Bell. If you guys want to go check her out, that'd be awesome. We started when she was just little. I mean, she's a teenager now, but I think we started when she was like 10, maybe. And she had just started learning the guitar, just started singing, and we've been doing lessons for years. And now she's actually signed to a label with Jace Martin and Crystal Schwanda, and she writes. Well, I help her write her music, but like all of her music is professionally produced, and you can hear it on the radio. And it's crazy to see that like little girl, when she just first started writing and she just started singing, and seeing her confidence grow over time, and seeing how big that she's gotten from that. And it's crazy when she tells me, oh yeah, I'm going to fly out and perform a concert on the other side of Canada this weekend, and it's like, wow, that's my student. Yeah.
Yeah, and seeing that it's not even the growth at that point. It's just the surprise that she's able to do it on her own, I feel like.
Yeah. Whereas before it was all about the guidance, and now to see that we still do lessons together, but to see that she doesn't need that guidance as much anymore, that she can take and create on her own and do her own things from what I taught her before, which is really cool.
Does that change the lessons? Because that almost, and thinking about it now, that's actually that almost there's that element to music lessons that when you get to a point of skill, you can do a lot of it on your own. You can train, and you're getting into very complex chord progressions or scales, and then it doesn't surpass where you're at, but it changes what they need.
So I always say that my lessons are a little bit different from the standardized music lessons that you get from other people. Whereas, for example, I'm growing with my students as they grow. So I'm not teaching them the standardized theory of music and then telling them, okay, that's it for today. You learned your theory, go home and come back and we'll do a little bit of more theory. It's more, I teach them their music, their promotions, their presence, how to book those shows, and how to actually do things in the real world. It's not just about the music, our lessons. So it's writing, it's kind of the whole package and everything. I really just want to share all the knowledge I've ever learned. So as they grow, they're continuously learning more. It's kind of the way I grew up as a musician, and learning things little bit by little bit when they're ready to learn those things, because I wouldn't throw all of this information at them right away, right? They need to learn the little things before they can make the big steps, which is Leah, for example. We started off with a little bit of singing and a little bit of guitar, and then we moved on to songwriting, then we moved on to getting that label, and then we moved on to promoting yourself and making business cards and getting yourself out there. So there's no stop for our lessons. It's just continuous growth and learning new things as time goes.
Which is something that did you find that it happened naturally when you were younger? Or was your dad the main person that brought you through those steps, do you think?
I think it's a little bit of both, because my dad definitely introduced me to a lot of things, and he taught me a lot of things about promotion and being more. I was very introverted as a kid, I didn't want to talk to anyone. So he really brought me out of my shell and helped me learn how to have those conversations and how to promote yourself properly. And then eventually I took what he had taught me and I brought it, on the road. I definitely think I learned a lot when I was on tour, and it kind of started developing naturally there. Also going to university, taking communications really helped develop the marketing and the promotion side of things. And I'm like a sponge, continuously growing, but I think it was a little bit of both. At the beginning, I definitely needed that push, but now it's taken off. So.
Yeah, and a lot of it now is, or rather, when you get to a certain stage, I've noticed with a lot of the interviews with Music Prophet that there's a certain point in a musician's career when it's not about talent or writing anymore. It's actually about finding your audience.
Yes. Yeah. So there comes a point where, it's. We always joke, me and my dad. We say it's 50% music, 50% entertainment, and that entertainment sector is knowing who your audience is and how you can reel them in, I guess. Because if you just have an artist who's good at singing and good at performing, but not fun to watch on stage, or is not engaging enough, or is not having the right conversations, and not drawing the right people in, because not everybody's going to like you, but it's important to find the people who do.
Right. Not everyone is going to like what you talk about or how you sing, or there's definitely someone who just hates your voice out there somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. It's just important to find the people who are interested, and I think it kind of relates back to sales in the end. I hate to say it, but it's like not everybody wants to buy your product, but there are people out there who do. You just have to find them.
Which, I mean, and so I'm kind of curious then. I mean, partially because of my marketing background, but also just for people that listening that might be able to use it. What is one marketing or like sales, quotes around sales, of course, that you would give people or younger musicians?
Oh, like a piece of advice.
Of course, yeah.
Oh, for marketing and sales. I think it's really important to listen to other people. And this is what I tell my students when they're trying to promote themselves, for example, networking. It's important to listen to what the other people have to say. If you're the one doing all the talking, you're not doing it right. It's really about what the other person is saying, and you have to really listen to every detail that they're saying, because there are things that you can pick up on that will help you sell your product or get them interested in what you have to say. I could have a conversation with someone and I could be continuously talking about myself. But if you're not learning about them, you don't know what to pick up on that can connect you to them. So I could say, having a conversation with someone and then ask them, oh, like, where did you grow up? And where have you been working? Oh, you travel? Oh, where do you travel? Oh, you lived in Finland? Oh, I lived in Finland. And then you build that connection with them, you build that rapport, and then it kind of gets them hooked, I guess. So it's really important to not just like know what to say about yourself, but listen to what other people have to say.
It is a relationship after all, and between you and the fans, whether it's through the lyrics or meeting them in person, you are building that relationship.
Yeah, it's all about relationships and rapport. And that's why famous artists like Taylor Swift, just my easiest example, they're as popular as they are because she's constantly like reaching out to fans. And I don't know if you see in the media all the time, it's like, oh, Taylor Swift gives money to a fan. Taylor Swift visits her fan's birthday party or like this wedding or something. Like she's building that rapport with people. She's not just saying, here's my music, take it and enjoy it, you know?
And actually speaking of that, also because right now is a formerly local rapper named Cheza, who used to do a lot of local work. Shout out to Cheza. We did an interview, it's going to be coming out soon. But that made me think of the community impact. So as a musician, what have you done over the years to network and build community connections?
Oh, that is a tough question because it's really something that just has developed so much over time. But like that conversation we were having earlier, I give a lot of that credit to my dad for introducing me. And I'm not sure how he did it, how he got all of these connections and like well networked himself, but he definitely pulled me into that world of networking and being a part of a community. He introduces me to his contacts and basically we've always been the type of people to be doing community service and community outreach, and we're always doing like fundraisers and shows and trying to help the community and be there for people. That's just kind of the way I grew up. So it's something that came over time, where people reach out and say, you know, I have this fundraiser coming up. We really need your help. And you just put things down and you do it for the sake of other people, And I don't know, I think that's a really important part of community, is being there to help one another out, especially in this time right now.
Yeah, because it's important. And speaking of community, well, I think it'd be, would you be open to having people that are watching us ask a question?
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know whether, because at the moment, whether Brittany, Matt, Nikki, or Linda wants to ask Cass anything.
I can see questions. Hi, guys.
So feel free to comment in the box if you want to ask a question. I mean, I feel like Linda, with her country show, and I feel like she has something that is just burning in her mind.
Hi, Linda. Yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. My mom is watching. Hi, Mom.
And while we're waiting, that actually is a great person to follow, is Aunt Linda's Country Tailgate. It is a fellow CKLU show, and she interviews a lot of country musicians that are kind of new, others that have been around Sudbury for a while, and then just a lot. It's a great lineup. Have you ever been on the show, Cass?
No, I haven't, but I'd love to be. Linda, hi.
Yeah, make the connection now. Might as well.
Yeah. I'm a country artist. No. Well, look at that.
Actually, so I mean, while we're waiting, you mentioned country artist, which does kind of make me think. But my question though is, where is the line between country and where you're at?
Between country and what? Sorry, you cut up.
Country and the sound that you have.
Oh, okay. So here's something that's a little bit different for me, is that I don't necessarily say that I'm one specific genre of artist. I find I'm writing music in all different types of genres, and so to say that I'm specifically a country artist, and say that that's where I draw the line, like for me, there are no lines. If you listen to my album, every song is a little bit different, like jazz and a little bit of pop, and country and a little bit of pop, and blues and a little bit of pop. And
she did ask, and it's interesting because one of our viewers before was Matt LeMay, who also did theater at Theatre Cambrian, which is interesting. So we have So we have a question from Aunt Linda, from the country show, and she asked, "How has your history with Theatre Cambrian helped you as a stepping stone for your career?"
So I was involved with Theatre Cambrian for a really long time, and before Theatre Cambrian, I was not much of a musical theater person or a theater person before. But as soon as I got introduced to the theater and the different programs that they have, it completely changed my course. I guess you can say it opened the doors to a lot of things for me. I got a lot of supporting lead roles, which allowed me to understand what it's like to jump into another character and become another person, which really supported my acting. And also it opened the door to teaching for me. Theatre Cambrian was the first time I ever taught anything. I started running their summer camp programs, and I started doing their Kids Academy programs. And I had never thought about teaching before until I started teaching there. So I guess you can say the reason why I became a music teacher in the first place is because of Theatre Cambrian, for sure.
Yeah, which is, I feel, and it's interesting, because it's, especially in the arts, I've noticed that it's the small things that sort of all like they pile. Mm-hmm. That was a great motion to like not look like a pile. That was great. Yeah. But it's But a lot of tiny things do build up, you know, the small performances, the small songs that you wrote, the poems and theater stuff that you would do. And then over time, it all just kind of creates this.
Exactly. It's all little stepping stones. And until you brought it up, like, I guess I really didn't think about how much of an impact that community had on me, because theater is a community of itself. And it really, even going back to our last question about community and getting connections, this also, Theater Cambrian also opened the door to that, because I gained a whole nother family, like we would say, from it. And I made so many friends and close connections and people who opened doors for other projects that I wouldn't have gotten if I hadn't joined the theater and met them. You know?
Is there any other small thing that you've done that, when you think, that is sort of a hidden gem for you?
Ooh, yeah. So I guess it's not like a music related thing, but I've come to learn now that when I was younger, I was in Army Cadets for like 5 years. I know it's not the typical thing, but I find that it's actually helped me become who I am as a communications specialist in my field, because it taught me a lot of things about timing, and even, I guess it can relate back to music, because it kind of gave me my drive to be a go-getter and do the things that I want to do. Because in the program, they were really, I don't want to say strict. Strict is such a bad sounding word, but I guess they were really tight on the things we were doing, and they always pushed us to be our best and to keep going no matter how hard it got. And so I think that really shaped who I am as a person today, and that can really, I guess, relate to my music career, like pushing me to get that album done, to keep writing, to keep teaching, to keep performing. I think without that background, I might not be as motivated as I am. So.
Yeah, because I mean, especially in with the things that you do as a multitasking type of element, and just the small side projects that you take on, plus everything else, I feel like, yeah, you're right. You know, when someone really does a deep dive into your music background, but also just kind of like the professional side, there is a lot that you've balanced, and cadets would make it easier to stay driven and focused.
Yeah, I don't know how I do it sometimes, because there's just so much going on that I guess I don't stop to think about how much is going on. But yeah, I think I learned that at a very young age. So being able to grow up with that in mind really made it easier, rather than, I guess, you know how they say, like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks? I guess because I grew up that way, doing things all the time. I was always balancing theater and cadets and school and work. Growing up, that it just made it easier to be that way right now.
And yeah, no, it's funny you mention that, because I find I'm the same way, right? With a lot of, it's just with so many things in the arts, and then business related, and then side projects, and then you get the poetry slam things. It's just, if you don't slow down, then you don't need to worry, almost.
Exactly. But then when you have something like social distancing where everything comes to a halt, then you realize, man, I've been doing a lot. Maybe I should take a break for a little bit.
Well, either that, or even, you know, like when the burnout sort of kicks in and you don't realize it until it's too late. And then you have to take stock of what you're working on and tear down almost.
Yeah, I've definitely had that a couple times. The burnout where it creeps up on you and you don't realize it's happening until it happens.
How do you manage that as an artist? Like musically, because this is a music show after all. How do you musically get past a creative block or musical burnout?
So, this is a good question, because I also teach this in my classes is that I actually, for writing music, let's say I go through writer's block, which I quite frequently do, and I think everybody does at some point, go through writer's block. I have like a process that I write with that isn't just, sometimes I could pick up my guitar and write a song, it just flows out. But when I'm having writer's block, I have a process that I go through, which is the brainstorming phase, where you think of what you want to write about, who you want to write about, and you write everything down. You make up stories. Think about your own past stories. And then you step into your, as you would know, like you're writing your rhyming schemes and everything, and the structure, the proper structure of a song. So I guess like I don't stop writing when I get writer's block. I kind of push myself to keep doing it, even if it's just following that guideline that I have for writing.
And that's a trick with poetry as well. There's when you have writer's block, when you're creating a poem or when you're trying to write something in general, you just keep moving the pen on paper. So you just kind of trace, and then eventually you're like, okay, cool, I can go back to normal.
Yeah.
And we have another question from Linda. And this is exciting because this is now almost interview 10 that we've technically co-hosted, you know? Her and I have done 8 interviews before this with opera singers and country singers and people wearing mining outfits. It's great. And so we have another question from Linda. And I'm curious too about this. So why don't you, everyone can see it on the screen, but if you're just listening, the question is, you traveled Up With People, and what was that experience like for you?
So that is a really difficult question, because to encompass everything that we did in Up With People, it's something that you can't describe. And any of my castmates would understand that trying to describe what our experience was like, for people to understand, it's so difficult.
Well, maybe start with like, what is Up With People first?
Okay, so Up With People is a nonprofit organization which aims to bring the world together through volunteer service and music. So basically what we did was we all met up in Denver, Colorado, and we wrote and learned this show, which for us was called The Journey. And that was about a month. It took... yeah. I'm reading the comments. That's
Linda, you're not wrong. You do know a lot about her, yes.
So, yeah, basically, we would learn this show, and then once the show was ready to go, we would begin the tour, and we would live with host families, and we would travel to... for example, Mexico, Sweden, Finland, Estonia, and we would do community service for different community action projects like homeless shelters, and I did like youth detention centers and just different things like that, different projects like that. And at the end of the week, after doing all of our community service, we would put on like a big concert, a big show, and all the proceeds that we made from the show, we would donate back to the charities that we work for. In the community. So it's a really community-based project. And I say that experience for me was something I could never put a price tag on, or I just learned so much about myself and so much about other people, and it completely like changed the track of where I was going, I'd say.
And the fact that it was community-oriented is a big factor, right? It's so focused on getting everyone working as a team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was weird at first, because you meet up with 115 to 120 people from all over the world, different countries. And if you haven't been exposed to cultural differences, it's something that's really unique to be put in one small room with 120 people from all these different countries. Some of them don't even speak English, you know, so like there's a huge language barrier. There's a culture barrier. For us, I find in North America, we're pretty, or I can't say North America, Canada, we're pretty reserved as people, I find. And when I meet up with my friends from Mexico, like their culture of interacting with other people is so different. I mean, I love it. When my friend came up to me for the first time to introduce herself, she like gave me a kiss on the cheek, and we're not used to that here. Like that's not what we do to somebody we just meet. So I think like that was my first open my eyes realization of like cultural differences. And for me, that was really cool. Learning about the way other people live their lives and the way other people interact. And I can say like I learned about a lot of those things, and I kind of took those things and put them in my back pocket too. It changed me as a person for sure.
Do you think that the cultural experiences, so seeing the different ways of life, the different personality traits, even that come out when you're in the South American countries and Eastern part of the world, has that changed how you write lyrics, do you think? Like the perspective you bring to lyrics?
That's a good question. Yes, I think mostly because it changes my stories and it changes the way that I see things and the way I see people. So I can say like the biggest change for me was when I was in Mexico, because it just opened my eyes to a lot of things that I had never experienced before. And I frequently write about my experience in Mexico. And obviously, if I wouldn't have been there, if I wouldn't have met those people, I wouldn't be writing about that, you know? So it's definitely shaped the way I write songs, what I write about. My lyrics wouldn't be the same.
What is the one thing that you would change, though, about the experience?
Something that I would change? That's hard. I don't think I would change anything because I really believe that everything happens for a reason. The one thing I was going to say that I would change is like not falling off of the roof when I was in Mexico, but I wouldn't even say that I would change that because that also shaped me as a person. Like I wrote a lot of songs about that experience and how it was like a life-changing experience. So I can't say that I would take that back. I mean, it sucks, but I wouldn't take it back.
It's unfortunate, right? But that's also some of the best songwriters they do take the worst moments and they sort of trap them into a song, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
I think, unless anyone else has in the comments, Regan just joined us. Hello. If you have a question for Kassie, you can ask her. And I don't know if Linda has any last thoughts. Make it a true co-hosted interview. Otherwise, while we're waiting, tell us where we can find you on Spotify, social media, so they can actually go and listen to your music and hear your stories.
Yeah, so you can find me on Kassie Taylor Music. That's my Facebook and my Instagram and all of my social platforms. Also, my website, you can go to KassieTaylorMusic.com or .ca. It's Spotify, Kassie Taylor. Everything's pretty similar, so there's no confusion as to where people can find me. So
perfect. So that's a good way to wrap it up. So thanks for coming on, dude. That was fun.
Thanks for having me. It's so fun.
And I suppose I should say that, or actually, do you want to tell us about where you're performing next?
Yes,
just so people can see you.
We're going to be doing a live stream. You can help me out with this one because we were talking about it this morning. We're doing a live stream with the Sudbury Arts Council.
Right, and it was there's a whole series, right? There's some songwriters, rappers, comedians.
Yeah, exactly. So from 6:30 to about 8:40, you can watch a huge lineup of so many different artists. Like, I want to like name them all, but there's too many. I have it in front of me. And basically, they're going to be posting that live stream, so you can catch. My dad and I are going to be performing, and other local artists, communities, comedians, and performers that you can catch on that live stream. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and there's going to be a huge variety. So I definitely suggest you check it out.
Yeah, and if you want to see Cass perform a few songs, then you can go there and make sure to check any sort of live stream. And yeah, thanks. That was awesome. Thanks
for having me.
Yeah. So, and for everyone watching out there, or if you're watching it after it's not live, so if you're watching it on Facebook, you can go to the Music Prophet, PHET, as a page on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and you can find a lot of the past episodes. So the one I did the shout out to Cheza, you can find that episode there. Coming up will actually be another one with someone else who's watching, who's a metal singer. His band is on there, and there's a whole bunch of others that if you want to check out other interviews, when you're bored because there's a lot of free time all of a sudden, you can discover a ton of talented musicians. So until next time.